to Life Lanes, everyone, the brotherly guide. We're your hosts, Justin and Dom Mazza, and on today's episode, we're chatting with another awesome friend I have that I met through our social sports, Amanda. I met Amanda, I think, a few years ago now. We
Yeah.
instantaneously hit it off. We kind of come from like similar work backgrounds, so we kind of connected to that. But she shifted recently in her career path. She's become a homeowner since. She's the host of a new podcast, Professional Life Crisis, where she talks about the twists and turns as a young professional. So, Amanda, welcome to this chaos.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be in the, I don't know, in the sauce. Like we're in the chaos. I love it.
We're here. We're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Circle of
You're
trust.
so right though. Like I forgot we kind of connected originally through, like through the sports, but also because we were in a similar like consulting field. And honestly, there weren't that many people in, like in our sports league that were in those sorts of career paths. So it was like nice
Yeah.
to have a friend that we could just shoot the shit about work with and really relate
Yeah.
to each other that way.
Yeah, I remember we went to, I think it was South Shore Brewery. I forget what brewery. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And we found out accidentally it was trivia night. And then we
Right.
started playing. We're like, okay, sure, we'll roll with this. And we were just there for a few hours. So it was cool.
Yep.
That's awesome. So maybe, Amanda, could we start about your podcast?
Oh, yeah, of course.
When did that start? How's it going? When am I coming on? Let's talk through it.
Soon, I hope. Soon, I hope. The podcast is going great. So I launched in the middle of November, and I don't know, we're up to somewhere around episode 20.
Cool.
Been trying to keep myself on a regular schedule of publishing, and I'm sure, as you know, that's challenging, but it's fun. So I started the podcast basically shortly after a sort of big career change. I got laid off, which I'm sure we'll talk more about.
Yeah.
And it's been a great opportunity for me to interview people and to understand other people's perspectives about jobs that have been similar to mine and jobs that have been really different from mine. And it's crazy when you think about how different your experience can be, even when two people can relate about the job title, but so much of what they perceived from that experience can be so different. So I've really been loving having those conversations. And also, I think it's just a great way to meet new people, keep growing my network, and be more reflective about my career journey thus far. I think it's a good time, like in my late 20s, to kind of reflect about how it's all gone. And my main goal with it really is to help young professionals who are going through that really messy and very uncertain time that is their early career. So hopefully I can give back a little bit of that wisdom that I've gained either from my own experience or from these great interviews that I've been conducting and through some of my own research.
Yeah. Your podcast has a better quality of fishbowl to me. Like, do you remember fishbowl, right?
That's great.
So, Dom, I don't know if we've ever talked about fishbowl, but it's basically anonymous company like Twitter in a way where
It's
people
like a
just
shit
go,
talking app, but for people's careers where they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most people are anonymous, but like some people ask really dumb questions. Some people ask questions that you don't want it, like you're too embarrassed to ask. Other people go in there and brag, and also you don't know if that's even true because it's anonymous. But Amanda's podcast, I think, has a lot of those. Like, I'm too stupid to ask, or I don't want to feel stupid
Yes.
to ask a question. Like, hey, what's a startup? What does that actually mean? And
Yeah.
that was like a fun episode for me to listen to. So I really
Thanks.
appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Oh, I love that analogy. That's really great. That it's like the fishbowl where you feel comfortable asking like really basic questions. Because I think there's so much that you don't know when you're starting your career. There's so much that you don't know about your own job, let alone what other people are up to, that I like to like go back to the basics and get really clear answers to simple questions like, what does it mean when you say you do this job? What is that?
Yeah.
And we start there. So yeah, it's going great. I'm excited to have you on soon also.
Yeah, for sure. So are you doing this alone?
I am. Yep.
So we have our lovely Dean here who it was like kind of honestly decently easy to start because he had all like the foundational stuff and he understands technology behind it. But how are you navigating just all that?
I started with a podcast coach actually. When I
Cool.
realized that I was pretty serious about launching, I'm in a Facebook group that's for female podcasters, and she was offering her coaching services, and it was basically like a small package where she would help you get started. She'd help you identify what's your core idea for the podcast and what are sort of like your content pillars, and then also like the technical setup and all the like more difficult stuff behind the scenes that I had no experience with. And that was great. Like, I feel like I got so much out of working with her. If anybody is interested in a podcast coach, I would highly recommend her. She's Rue Spence from Sonivia Studios. And that really just gave me the foundation to feel confident and to know what I was doing on the tech side. So that was great, like super invaluable. And yeah, then from there, it's been just like, learn by doing, just play around, see what works. And I try to get better at it every week that I do it.
Yeah. Do you listen to other podcasts, like either
Yes,
for inspiration or do you compare yourself? Like,
religiously.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's always that game of comparison. And as you may know from recently launching as well, podcast growth is slow to start. It's not like all of a sudden you publish something and you're just flooded with all these new listeners and everybody who wants to engage with it. It's definitely a slow process to get started. So you have to keep that in mind and not get discouraged. But it's been a really fun process and I've been enjoying learning through that. What was your question again? I feel like I
No, I mean, just like, I guess I've gotten, I think, more into podcasts since I
Oh
started.
yeah,
And
what other
I,
podcasts I like?
yeah, like I've always listened
Yeah.
to a few, mostly about mostly around other subject matters like
Motley
finance or
Fool.
business. Yeah, Motley Fool's the best. All right, relax.
Yeah,
But now I'm super into like an interview style. I got really into armchair experts. I love
mm,
Dax and like his stuff is really cool.
yeah,
And I'm always like a Smartless fan with Bateman and Arnett, and it's just interesting, like how it takes a certain level of chaos and outgoingness and like it really is like professional
totally.
chaos. It's really fun to
It
listen to.
is. It's like organized chaos with like a lot of personality on
Well,
top, like sprinkled
it's
in.
entertainment like through the ears only, which is so hard to do,
It is.
especially in like the way we consume entertainment today. So
Yeah,
I just
it
find
is. It is.
it's a good, cool
But
skill.
yeah, I've always kind of been a bit of a podcast junkie, and I felt like I just got more and more into it. Since starting, I continue to listen to other people's podcasts. I wouldn't necessarily say that I do it for inspiration for like topic ideas, but I think like listening to how other people edit and how other people are consistent and how they show up, that is inspiring to me. But I listen to podcasts for a lot of my own interests. I have a couple that I love. I love The Psychology of Your 20s. That's just a great sort of psychological perspective on growing up and all of the emotional things that you go through in your 20s. I love like finance related podcasts. I love like the Bigger Pockets podcast. I love like things that are about personal development and growth. I'm like really into that kind of stuff. So I've always listened to podcasts, and I feel like even now I'm just like more so into it too. And murder podcasts, oh my god, I love those. Those are so good.
I was about to say, are you a true crime fan?
One of those.
Yes. I love the best murder podcast I ever listened to is called Your Own Backyard. It's actually a funny story.
Oh.
So my current boyfriend introduced me to this podcast, and it's about the murder of a girl named Kristen Smart, who went to Cal Poly back in like the 90s, I think. And it is so well done. It's produced by this guy who had never had a podcast before, but he was an audio engineer, I think. So he had this amazing podcast. He did such a great job at storytelling and producing, editing, that we got really addicted to it. And so when my boyfriend and I were just in California this past couple of weeks, we actually stopped at the Cal Poly campus and like saw the dorm room where the murder took place, which I know is like horrible, but I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. So yes, I'm into true crime podcasts, probably a little bit too much. But yeah, it's like a fascinating like method for storytelling, I think.
Do you know what was the story of like the girl who traveled in Italy? She like
The
traveled
Amanda Knox
yeah, Amanda
case.
Knox. Yeah. Did you
Uh-huh.
ever get into that one?
I like know about her story from TV, but I've never listened to a podcast about it. I probably
Oh,
should.
that one's good because Justin, do you know that story?
Vaguely sounds
think
She
it was
suspect.
like
like-
studied
There's a lot of them.
abroad.
Yeah, she was studying abroad, and then she got accused of killing her roommate, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This sounds familiar now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the whole thing was, and she was innocent, right? So she was proven innocent, and I don't know if she did jail time, but she definitely was
She
like
did.
detained for like a certain, yeah. So she did, actual time. And it was
There
all
in
about,
Italy or
I'm
back
Yes.
pretty
here?
sure it was in
Oh,
Italy,
wow.
yeah.
Okay.
About how she didn't express the typical
Oh,
emotions that one would express,
Yep.
and then that brought into like this whole thing of like she wasn't even charged with anything, but yet she wasn't like sobbing uncontrollably when her roommate died. Yeah,
Mhm.
cool story, crazy story, very interesting. Yeah, what
Yeah.
platform do you use, Amanda?
To host,
Yeah,
I host my podcast through Substack, and then I just cross-publish to other podcast catchers. I wanted to start in a place where I could have an email list. Just because I've seen through my own experience doing influencer marketing, like from the brand side at my old job, that the people who have an audience, period, but B, an audience where they have like control over their subscribers, like control over their email list or a way to directly interact with their followers is important and is helpful if you ever want to grow into a place where you're working on brand sponsorships or partnerships. So I started with Substack, and then I just distribute to the other podcatchers.
do you come out with a weekly news article or
It's
whatever, weekly
essentially
email?
my show notes. So what's in the
Mhm.
newsletter is like a blurb about the episode, maybe like a little poll or some way to interact with the podcast episode and give me some feedback, and then like an option to share it.
You do that through Substack as well?
Yes.
The email? Yeah. Okay, because I just launched an LLC, and my next
too.
thing is oh great, congratulations.
Yeah, you too. It's a process.
It is a process, and me
Yeah.
and Dean were because Dean launched one as well, maybe last year, and I was just like fumbling through this paperwork. I was like,
It's-
"What is
yeah.
a registered agent? Like,
I
what
know-
is
oh my
all this
God, yeah.
crap?" Did you
Yeah.
have to get like a virtual address?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yep.
yeah, had to do that. Is this whole thing, but I was advised the next thing to do is to get this weekly email list going, just to
Yeah.
kind of start building up that base. And I was like
I think it's a good
exploring. I
idea.
was like, all right, like how do I do that? And maybe I will look through the Substack.
Yeah,
that
I can help
Lifelines
you
has
with it if
ran
you
through.
want. I can show you how the platform works and stuff. But it's
That
good
would
because
be
also
great.
like my subscribers who are subscribed to me on Substack get an email notification every time an episode goes live, and that's even better than just sort of popping up on Spotify whenever Spotify decides to like put you in their little top box of like 6 podcasts that you like. So I have some really loyal listeners through that, which I think is great.
Amanda, how do you find your guest? Like, and what's the balance of? Because you don't have a guest on every episode.
No, it's kind of
Yeah.
2 guests a month or a guest a
Okay.
month, kind of depends. I'm still figuring out the rhythm of it all.
Us too.
So far, I have interviewed people who I know through my own network, through sort of growing up. I have some friends who have really interesting career backgrounds from high school that I've known for, my whole life.
Mhm.
And then when I meet people at conferences, I tell them now that I have a podcast, and a lot of the time people are interested in coming on. I think because people love to talk about themselves, it's like everyone's favorite topic is like, let me talk about myself. Let me go on this podcast. So that's where I've started. And I also am part of a couple of professional networks for people who are like working at startups, who are early stage operators, who have been in the chief of staff role. So I've found a couple of guests through those networks, and those conversations have been so both interesting and just really validating for me. Being able to talk to somebody that's had a similar experience to you in what is the very messy world of startups has been a really great way for me to like center myself, I guess, and to almost like reflect more clearly on the experience and everything that I learned.
How do you deal with guests who don't have proper equipment? So we've run into this issue a bunch
Doesn't
of
happen.
times. Like
Yeah.
internet craps out, or
It
like
happens.
they have to do it from their phone.
Yeah. You know what I've realized is, to me, it's more important that I keep the commitment to myself, that I publish an episode every week, and that I'm having these great conversations. And ultimately, like a couple of weeks ago, I had an interview with a sort of colleague slash friend, and his AirPods died and he didn't have wired headphones. So we literally just recorded with his computer mic, and it didn't sound the best. But I was like, you know what? I don't think this is the most important thing. And quite frankly, like at the scale that I'm at with the podcast, not that many people
Doesn't
are going
matter.
to hear it and
Yeah.
be judgmental about the quality of the audio. So I try to keep it into perspective. I think it's really hard because I would say I'm like a recovering perfectionist. I definitely used to be, more so now. I'm like way scrappier that I've worked for a startup. I'm like, just ship it. Like whatever it is, just like record it and put it out. And I think that that practice is also just better for me rather than the like procrastinating and figuring out everything perfectly and making sure that my guests are, you know, absolutely perfect with their recording setup too. It's not realistic. And maybe when you're at scale and you're like Alex Cooper recording Call Her Daddy, you know, it's a different situation. But until we get to that point, it's just not a big deal.
And Amanda, before we potentially move on to another subject, where can we find your podcast?
Yeah. So my podcast is on basically every podcast app that you could potentially have a podcast on. So that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. There's so many podcast apps, but
What
you
is
can,
iHeartRadio?
I think it's like a network and they have an app or something.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
iHeartRadio.
So anywhere that you get your podcasts, you can find Professional Life Crisis. And you can also follow me on LinkedIn. I post a lot about it there. And you can sign up for my email subscription so that you get episode notifications.
Cool.
I feel like LinkedIn has really sold out to like ads and like I get people just like all these like sponsored like messages like, oh, like LinkedIn Premium fucking every day.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, like you looking
They're
to connect
pushing
here
it.
and I'm just like,
It's
simmer
true.
down, guys.
And I
Simmer
feel like a
down.
lot more people are using LinkedIn now almost as creators. I have seen a huge growth in using LinkedIn as a platform for publishing your sort of personal brand, your thoughts about your craft, about your career, which I am also trying to do a bit of too, because I think it's a great place to find other people who are young professionals. That's exactly my audience. So I think it has to be, you know, got to be in the right place for the right people, but
Yeah.
it's a good place for me.
Microsoft purchased them a few years ago, and I remember when it had, just because I'm a big investor in Microsoft, remember like learning about it, like, oh, we're still going to use Facebook. Like Facebook was the major social media, but
You're
LinkedIn's
dating
super,
yourself.
yeah, right. LinkedIn's super interesting. I mean, we get even critiqued when we don't post content on LinkedIn through my like job, like even just reposting
whatever they post.
Like our chief economist's article, and we should be doing that, but it's also not the first thing that comes to mind. And
yeah,
like,
I think it's also like, I think of it more relevant in my life now that I am freelancing and I have my own business and I'm trying to network outside of my company. When I worked in consulting, I feel like the gospel was to network within so that you could, you know, find the best projects, sell the best work, you could work with the best people. So all of my time and effort was on internal networking. Now it's flipped. Now, I mean, I don't have an internal company to network with, but it's really all about that external network and who you meet out in the wild. So,
So you started this podcast in November.
yep.
I also want to learn about the business around it, right? Like kind of your second, you know, career life story that's coming. But maybe walk us through everything that happened last year, those major milestones that I'm sure everyone keeps asking about.
Yeah,
Wait,
everything. Wow, that's a lot.
Before that, real quick, do you use Twitter?
I don't.
Oh.
I feel like I should because
Dom
people
loves
say
Twitter.
that like Twitter is like a growth hack. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you can teach me like
Twitter
how to
is-
write for Twitter.
We're big Twitter fiends.
But like, do you write on Twitter or do you
time.
just like view and engage with other people's
no,
content?
You have to post.
Dom
You have to
posts.
post.
Okay.
But like, you can
I think I
post
need
some
to learn
bullshit.
how. Huh.
Like our friend posted something about like Sony. What did he say, Dean?
Oh, it was me.
Okay.
I
From
run
the
all the Twitter
Yuki-centric
accounts. Well, yeah, I mean, like, so if you follow the right accounts and you just put notifications on, so like Amanda, I have Dom like follow certain life and health side people in his and doctors like in his world, and if you have notifications on, like, and you see when they tweet, and if you're just like one of the first people there, like you get like crazy exposure. So like there was some
like if you comment on there.
yeah,
post.
if you comment on it, and like And then if you're just smart with when you post and you try to post stuff that's trending, you'll get like crazy impressions. But like Dom, for example, just commented on this one doctor's post, and then she retweeting doesn't do much, but she quote tweeted it, and it got like 150,000 views, and like
I think even more,
it's
like 200,000.
Yeah, it probably went
Do
up.
you have a lot of followers on Twitter?
I have like 600 now.
All right,
we're getting there. I have a friend who's really big on Twitter. He has like maybe like 160,000. So he just like retweets on my shit, and I've been definitely
good friend
piggybacking off of him. Yeah, he's a good friend. He's a good friend. All right, sorry to derail that, but yeah, you should get on Twitter. You know, people make their entire businesses just off.
This seems like a good business. You know, you got Twitter Help and Substack.
And
you guys
Substack, yeah. Let's like exchange some tips because I don't know how to like authentically write for Twitter.
Yeah, but you know what Amanda's utilizing it for versus what we are utilizing it for.
Yeah, I feel like we're too reliant on our producer sometimes, Justin. That maybe we should learn how to do some of it on our own.
The one time we tried to record and we couldn't. Amanda literally, Dean's just hit record, and we did, and then Dom's computer's yelling at him that he's out of space, and
I
like, all right, there goes that 15
Never
minutes.
Come back.
And we were crushing it. It was a great 15 minutes, and
whatever. We had her back on, and it was still great.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah.
Because you were at church, you ninny.
I was at church, yeah. So Amanda, like, I'm not seeing, like, you see me right now, but when I post everything, you don't see me.
Okay.
So
sounds good.
Me like writing in my diary. And
so these conversations also are like ghost conversations because you're not going to be in them. Okay.
He'll definitely chime in. You'll hear his voice.
Okay.
You'll just never see him on YouTube.
Wait, Justin, can you be more specific about your question though that you were about to ask me? Like what? About the layoff? About
laid off? Like let's go in.
Just
there.
Ask that question then.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, what were the emotional and I guess financial and everything around that? Because I'll just preface with saying, like, we're still obviously very young in our careers. I never have been through anything like we did in our industry over the last 18 months, where industry was slowing down. There was always threats about being laid off. I worked for a large, and still do work for a large company. They were going through different rounds of layoffs, and like every day, just like honestly, you're on fishbowl. You're like, "Oop, what group is being talked to this week?" And like all this crap. So there was a lot of garbage. You went from a larger company to a startup, and then you're in there, and then I guess how did everything unfold? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, so much. Okay,
yeah, let's unpack.
Yeah, let me unpack this. So, correct. I started my career at Accenture, a 500,000 person consulting firm. There was so much security there. And I mean, quite frankly, I was like a top performer, never missed a promotion. They were like singing my praises. I was going up the ladder, right? But the more I went up the ladder, the more anxiety I had about it because it was like I felt that like classic golden handcuffs situation. I felt like if I just stayed, they would keep promoting me, keep giving me more money, and that in and of itself is an insane amount of privilege. And like I'm very grateful that I had that as the start to my career. And also, I knew that it wasn't for me. I was stressed the longer I stayed that I was getting more and more trapped. So I knew that when I was going to leave Accenture, I was going to make that trade-off of stability and security to moving to a startup and having none of that, but having a lot more of that experimental freedom, a lot more ownership, a lot more impact on the actual product and the customers. So in a sense, when I joined my startup, which was a seed stage company, it was, I think, 8 or 9 people when I joined. So literally 180, right? 150,000 to 8. And so in my head, I was willing to take that risk. And so when I got laid off from the startup, it was about almost a year and a half-ish after I started. And the way I think back about it is that I was shocked that day. Like I was shocked. I didn't necessarily see it coming, but I wasn't surprised. In the long run, I knew that the company just was not hitting our revenue targets. We were not meeting the goals that we had set for ourselves in order to get to a successful Series A raise. So I knew kind of in the back of my head that this was a ticking time bomb. I think I just felt like I would be more on the inside of that decision. As the chief of staff at that company, I was the right-hand person to the CEO. And so I felt like I would have been more informed that that was going to happen. But there were signs leading up to it. I was getting to that conclusion, but it wasn't like crystallized in my head. If you've ever had that, like, yeah, something was bubbling and I was kind of getting like weird feelings, but I wasn't necessarily like, I am going to get laid off. So when it did happen, like, I was shocked. I was like, oh shit. Okay. Didn't expect this today. So I got laid off beginning of October. And unfortunately, at early stage startups, they do not have a lot of money, which is why you're getting laid off. They need to extend their runway. So their severance is really short. It was 1 month. And I was like, okay, I have to figure out what's next. And I got to do it quick. So in a way, I kind of felt like I was like standing at the edge of a cliff where I was starting to get a little bit suspicious that the company wasn't performing all that well and that maybe it wasn't, a long-term thing. And I also have always wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I've always wanted to have my own company and do my own thing. But I was always just like too chicken to do it. And I was trying to figure out like what is even my idea? What is my business? So when I got laid off, I felt like it was almost like they just gave me like a little, like, just like a one finger. They're like, okay, off you go. And then just off the cliff you go. So it was like a blessing and a curse, if I had to describe it. It pushed me towards a new phase of my life that I always wanted, but was scared to do. I didn't appreciate, getting pushed off the cliff and only having a month of severance, but
yeah,
it ultimately pushed me to do things like start the podcast. And that was something that I've been procrastinating. It pushed me to form my LLC, like Dom was talking about. And that's a scary process. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I chose to start freelancing instead of looking for a full-time role because it was quicker. I could turn it around faster. I could start making money quicker. And I was interested to see if I could manage an entrepreneurial venture. So that's basically what happened. But I'm not going to lie, like the stress and the anxiety that I had like all throughout, I'd say like early November through like almost like around the holidays, it was like manic. One day I'd feel super good. I'd be like, I'm crushing this. I know what I'm doing. I can do this. Like I feel ready. And then the next day I'm like, oh my God, I have to get a job tomorrow. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like the time I was looking at my savings account, I was like, this number dwindles every day. What am I doing? And so that anxiety got like unmanageable for a couple of days in flux throughout like November, December. And thankfully, I have to say, like, it's further and fewer in between now. And I feel that less often than I did, but I definitely still have days where I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
yeah.
Like, oh my God. And coming from a very like high paying, relatively stable career path, now I'm like, I don't know how much I make. And I also have to pay for my own health insurance. And I don't know. I also got a mortgage to pay for. So it's scary, but it also is freeing in a way that I didn't expect. I did an episode on my podcast that was like one of the most vulnerable topics I've ever talked about, which was like all about why I felt so tied to my salary and like how that number gave me a sense of self-worth.
As you're talking about this, I was thinking about that episode.
Yeah.
Like the self-worth one, because that's one of your earlier ones.
Yeah, it is. But I was
Yeah.
like so curious about that topic because I realized that part of the reason I was like scared to leave consulting and part of the reason I was scared to leave the startup job is because someone told me you are worth X amount of dollars. And to a certain extent, I was happy with that. I was like, cool,
Right.
that's good. That's pretty good. But that's not like, that's so binding. That's letting someone else dictate your potential in life and in your career. And not saying I will never go back to that. It's possible that I will. But I just feel very free right now. I can figure out how to get more clients. I can figure out how to scale my business and hopefully make more money doing this than I ever had doing my full-time jobs. But it's a lot. It's scary and it's very uncertain. So I'm kind of glad like it happened to me not late in my career. Like I am still early career, but I'm glad that I was like 28 turning 29 and not like 25. I think it would have
Right.
felt a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, you said a few things there. I definitely want to unpack, and I think one was the pushing off the cliff, and I hear that from multiple people who are doing something on a day to day that they didn't think they were doing. It's out of like necessity, or
Yeah.
right, they were literally pushed, learn how to fly, figure it out. And you've like, as long as I've known you, you've been super strong willed and independent and like totally capable of that, which is great. And yeah, I mean, just even that episode that you listened to, funny enough, like I've talked about this in professional settings and even in therapy about not tying myself to my career path.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of taught to do that super early on.
Yep.
And our generation is definitely about get more degrees and like, I think we all have secondary degrees here, and like it's all about school.
I actually don't.
And then career. You don't?
No,
You,
I just have a bachelor's degree.
That's pretty.
In what?
Yeah. In vocal performance and decision science, which I feel like is pretty unexpected.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
You a singer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, we were singing some karaoke today, me and Christina.
Definitely different.
Trying to think of
what songs.
What song? All right, I was gonna ask, what songs do you think we were singing?
Some sort of Backstreet Boys.
Oh, okay.
NSYNC.
I'll say they came out like mid 2000s.
Yeah, I feel like some boy bands, like for sure.
Not boy bands.
No, not boy bands. Like Britney. Like
so
it's
we
Britney,
were
bitch.
singing The Fray. A lot of The Fray.
Oh, that's even more like.
I need My Chemical Romance.
Play. No, I was thinking about putting "Wake Me Up When September Ends," though. That's a great one.
These are a lot more emo than I was expecting, but I love that.
You think The Fray's emo?
I mean, like, you know,
more emo than Britney.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, definitely more emo than Britney.
They're not screamo, but they are emo. That's for sure.
I don't even know how it started. Whatever. Got the route. Wait, what do you sing?
Okay. What do I sing at karaoke, or just what do I sing?
Karaoke.
I'm a mezzo, like medium low voice. So like a little Carrie Underwood.
Sure.
That's why I gave you the context. Yeah, like I'm an alto. That help, like sopranos high, altos lower. So like Before He Cheats, Carrie Underwood.
Yeah,
that's a great one. You know, like any of those girlies. But honestly, karaoke gives me massive anxiety. I actually usually hate singing karaoke because everyone's like, oh my God, you're a singer, so like you're going to be so good. I'm like, okay, sorry. Classical singing in choir is not the same as karaoke. So no, I will not definitely be good at this. Thank you.
Yeah, I've seen Amanda perform. That was, I remember we went to, forget what church or whatever it was.
Yeah, you came to a choir
Lindsay
concert.
We did. What I do remember, it was very warm that day, and they just had the doors open.
Oh, it's hot as hell.
Yeah, and it was like, I don't know, 40 or 50 you guys up there just belting.
Schwitzing out there.
Yeah.
Did you do the bells too?
Yep.
No, they're not like Catholic.
Ding.
No, what kind of,
what choir? No, it's like non-denominational. It's just like a professional choir. It's not related to a church.
I know what Dom's thinking about. It's such a Catholic thing.
Wait, are choirs like not always affiliated with religion?
No. A lot of the time they
just
are,
a group of
nope,
singers. I learned something today.
Amanda, just going back quickly on Accenture and all that, I'm just curious, like when I had someone tell me, if you make a list of 3 things when you're jumping jobs and that employer hits 2 out of 3, it's probably worth the jump, right? How much so you touched on like flexibility and autonomy, maybe like the freedom to think differently, not stay in your box. How much did just like the finances of that, like whether it be, base salary, but as in, I assume you got a pay raise or not when you jumped to the startup?
No, I did not.
You didn't? See, that's super interesting to me that people are willing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I ever could take less money.
Yep.
Which is hard. I don't want to admit that, but it's really hard.
No, you should, because I felt the same way. I was like, well, I'm never not going to make this amount of money. I'm always going to make more. That was my thought. Like, as long as I keep going my career, I'm always going to make more money. And at the time when I was at Accenture, I got to the breaking point. I said, like, I had cried at work a lot that summer. I was like, this we have to be done with this. We have to leave. Like this amount of money is not making me happy. The day to day is just not giving me the fulfillment that I need. And so I said, I hope I can find a job where I make a similar amount. But if I get all these other things, I think I can be happy with that. And luckily, I am an expert freaking negotiator. I took a negotiation class in college, which, wow, was that one of the most useful things I have ever learned in like traditional school. And so I negotiated my new salary to match my Accenture salary.
Nice.
But it, of course, did not come with all of the same perks. It did not have a fat bonus at the end of the year. It did not come with a 401k match. So in a way, like, yes, I did take a pay cut to work at the startup. But I think in terms of my long-term career, what I said to myself was, I'm never going to feel fulfilled if I don't become an entrepreneur, or I don't at least try. And I also thought, if I can be an entrepreneur, theoretically, I can make more money in my life than I ever will make staying working for someone else. And I think it's more so just the philosophy of that freedom and of being in charge of yourself than the money aspect, now that I'm a little bit older and maybe a little bit wiser. But I was willing to take that sort of pay cut, quote unquote, because of the experience and because of the level of title that I was able to get at that company. I think chief of staff is a really great role to be in, and to be able to grow into like a C-level role in the future at a startup. And I could see myself doing that. So for me, I was able to sort of bite the bullet a little bit. And then the same thing is happening now. I am not making the same amount of money that I was making at the startup by freelancing, but I do feel like that limitless potential that I didn't feel when somebody else told me, this is your number, this is your worth to us. So it's hard, but it's, you know, like it's so ingrained in us that earning a lot of money is fulfilling and it's pretty fun, and you get a big ego about it. You're like, hey, I make more than a lot of people my age, and I feel good about that. And all that's still true, but I'm just realizing that there are other things that are more important to me, and that like I'm looking at it as more of a long-term game than just like, how can I make the maximum amount of money like this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And as part of like the freelance, are you working with large companies, small business owners? Like, cool.
So similar space. I got really involved in the AI space from my last job, and I think it's definitely the future. It's definitely nice to be involved in the technology that I think is like sort of the next technological boom, so to speak. And so I'm doing marketing, consulting, and go-to-market strategy for other early stage AI startups. And I'm just experimenting with some new things in my business. So I'm trying to move from a sort of flexible model to a set subscription model, where I set a specific rate for the week or the month. And then the startups can work with me for as long or as short as they want, and they can easily pause their subscription. Because I think so much of what's important when you're at a startup is you need help right now on like an urgent project tomorrow, and you don't have the budget to hire a full-time person. And as soon as the ebb and the flow of the projects shifts, then you need to be able to basically get rid of that person and go focus on something else. So I think it can be really mutually beneficial for myself and for my clients to sort of have that flexibility. So we're trying that out. We'll see how that goes.
You know, that subscription-based model you mentioned is interesting because that's come up in my field a little bit. So I'm in medicine, but I'm in outpatient medicine, you know, in primary care, where you do kind of need to sell your services, right? And, you know, there's various ways on how to do that. But one of the residents of my clinic went to go shadow at another clinic, and he was telling me that they have a subscription base to their, like, to be a client with them. So they're like a hybrid where they bill insurance, but then you're also having to subscribe into it. Now, I don't know what extra things you get with the subscription.
I think I've heard about this. Like when I was looking at health insurance options, there were some alternative options. Is it called like ancillary insurance or like,
Well,
okay.
Which is like, you know, whatever. You have to pay $1,200 for the year, and you get X amount of calls, and you get X amount of lab work, yada, yada, yada. But usually those ones don't bill insurance, so they just do like this cash pay model. However, this one's like a hybrid where they're also, you know, they're doing both of it.
Interesting.
And then I thought about it because my clinic would want to sell me the clinic like whenever they're ready to retire, they're both 70. So they're kind of like grooming me to that, even though like I don't really want that. That's for another time. But, you know, I'm always thinking about like how to maximize these things. And I was like, a subscription would be a great idea. And you could keep it cheap, right? So like you kind of just run the same model you've been doing, but then you do like a $50 or $100 for the whole year, right? And I think of it as like a gym membership. And I think about all those people who are technically patients at your clinic, but who haven't been seen in like 3 years. Yeah. So it's just like, what are we doing with them? You know, meanwhile, like they could be paying into the subscription all the time.
Right.
And
that's true. Yeah. And I also been thinking about it in another way also. Like, you know how in the real estate market, there are short-term rentals like on Airbnb, VRBO, and then there's long-term rentals where like you have a tenant. Theoretically, when you rent to a tenant, you can't charge as much as you could on the monthly basis as you can if you're charging like a nightly price and you book it out for the whole month. I've kind of been thinking about the same thing for my subscription business, where if people are committing to a shorter term with me, I can kind of charge more because I am providing that service like really succinctly. It's just exactly when they need it and not when they don't. And I think that it can be beneficial for me. Obviously, I make more money. And also for them, like it's more in flux. Like if they need me a certain week and they don't need me a different week, like they can stop start. And ultimately I do hope that it will result in me making like basically like a higher like nightly rate if I were to compare it to Airbnb. I don't know. I've just been thinking about that lately because I'm also like interested in getting into real estate investing, but that's a different episode.
Yeah, I guess in that situation you would just need more clients to sell your services to, right? If you didn't have those reoccurring ones. But yeah, subscription base is interesting. And I feel like most of my friends who are entrepreneurs who have made it big in whatever fields they're doing it, they all have subscriptions.
Really?
You know, whether
Smart.
and it's all like tiered too, you know? So it's like, you know, gold tier, platinum tier, and like each tier gets you a little bit extra, right?
And it's more predictable, you know, when you've got subscriptions running. Theoretically, if you know your churn rate and you know like how long people tend to stick around with you for, you can predict your income a bit better, which I think would help me sleep at night just a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Amanda, what else we got to talk about today? What's on your list?
Let's see. I don't know. Did you want to talk about the house stuff? Do you want to skip it? Talk about it a different time?
Well, we're at like 50 minutes and we try to keep it to like an hour.
Okay.
You're a great guest, and we're definitely going to want to have you back on.
Yeah,
so,
I would love
you know,
to.
we can save some conversations. Like Justin was telling me you did a lot of solo traveling, so I'd definitely love to talk to you about that stuff.
Yeah, I think that could be separate, definitely.
Justin, you have anything you want to wrap it up with? Did you see my picture at CrossFit?
No, you sent me an Instagram of yourself?
Yeah.
We're
big into CrossFit now, man. I don't know if Justin's told you that.
No.
I don't do CrossFit enough to tell you I do CrossFit, I guess.
Not yet.
Justin's
Did you know he was big
loyal
into
to Orange Theory Fitness.
Not anymore.
I quit.
Stop. You quit? That was your entire
yeah,
person how you quit. Wow, that's badass.
Thanks. Stop.
Damn, Dom. Way to scream.
Dude, that was a good action shot.
That's good. Yeah, I think we just kind of outgrew Orange Theory, man. It kind of gets a little repetitive. You know, they've changed their workouts to have 50-minute lift classes now because people are like, I'm so sick of the treadmill.
Yeah, I was sick of it too.
We joined CrossFit in September after we came back from Africa, and it's been so humbling. And then I've talked to people who've been there for like 10 years. And what's helped my ego is to find out 90% of the people I'm working out with are D1 or former D1 athletes.
All right, so when you're not good at something, you feel a little less bad.
Yeah,
like,
so I'm like, okay. Yeah, I just found that out, and that definitely made me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Lindsay being short does not help, and like
I can't imagine her jumping on a box. Is she doing it too? Oh my god.
So she needs a box to like get to the bar. Meanwhile, you have like these D1 lax players just, you know, jumping toes and this whole thing. And
that feels like an unfair playing field for sure.
Well, and that's the thing where like Dom's gym is definitely more like competitive than mine, where even when I go and work out at Dom's gym, the coach will ask me for my time so they can put it on the whiteboard. Our gym
we don't do that anymore, but
oh, thank God. We just got our first whiteboard, and we're just like, hey, we're just here. We're just trying to have a good time, get healthy. It is interesting because I'm getting the first sports injuries, but I think
Yeah,
so. It's
maybe.
like a combination of the two. But it's been fun. I mean, it's definitely hard to be like tomorrow we're going at 7 a.m. and we have to run outside and come indoors and do this and this and that. I'm like, damn,
That's
like,
crazy. We don't run outside in the winter. We're not savages.
Yeah, that's
we
crazy.
We do.
It's gonna be
I
56
also-
degrees out. Come on.
Okay, that's
Nice.
not that bad.
45 calories on the
7 a.m.
air bike, Dom.
Oh, that's just like
Twice.
lazy programming, man.
It's
That's
a
a really
run,
long time.
air bike. I'll read the workout. I'll get there.
Why would you read the workout before you go? Like, I don't know what kind of misery I'm signing up for. Absolutely
it's gonna
not.
be bad regardless, right?
I'd rather be surprised.
500-meter run, 30 pull-ups, 40-calorie bike,
30
20
pull-ups.
suitcase
Girls can't do
step-ups.
that many pull-ups. Like, okay, maybe some really fit ones
we
can,
put,
but
no, we give you resistance
okay.
bands.
All right, that's good.
Yeah.
I still
They're
can
all-
only do a handful of pull-ups with the bands. But anyway, I totally agree. Orange Theory entertained me for like 2 or 3 years. Like I did it, I don't know, like right after college. So it was for like 2017 or 18. And then got sick of the cardio because it's super boring. And honestly, I didn't think that the lifting was that hard. And then after like a couple years, I got really into Pilates, spin, and there's this great gym that I really love in Lindenhurst. It's called OG Training Academy. And apparently a lot of the trainers who work at all the gyms around on Long Island like actually work out themselves there. And I'm like my ass gets kicked every time I'm there.
Yeah.
It's like heavy weights. Like I'm like lifting shit I didn't think I could lift.
Are they classes?
Yeah. Have you ever done an F45 class?
I've only heard Justin talk about it.
It's like another level up from Orange Theory. It's like, honestly, it's like a soft CrossFit, like in a way where it's a lot of throwing weight around, but it's quick cycles.
Yeah. So I'd say OG Training Academy is kind of like F45, but heavier weights and a little bit harder. And I like it a lot. I only do it every once in a while because like it's rough.
It is amazing how group fitness has taken off.
Like,
that is how the majority of people feel motivated nowadays.
Yeah, I can't like work out in my house. I mean, my best friend works for Peloton, so I've had her Peloton in my house for 2 years. I've never even plugged it in because I just have to go to a place and get motivated by the other people around. Otherwise, I can't.
Do you guys have ClassPass in New York?
Yeah. I love ClassPass.
It's huge in the city.
I even use it out on Long Island. It's great.
Wow, Dom.
What are you doing there, Dean?
You know what I don't understand about ClassPass? I feel like I need to like actually look up their business model. I feel like I can get classes on ClassPass for so much cheaper than if I were to sign up for like a single class at a gym or even get a membership. Like, don't even get me started. Pilates, if you go for a single Pilates class like anywhere on Long Island, it's like $30 to $40 for one class.
But that's what it is at Orange Theory. It's $30 for Orange Theory,
which is insane. But on ClassPass, a Pilates class might be like six credits or 8 credits, and like I'm paying like $2.30 a credit. So I'm like, the math is not mathing. What's going on behind the scenes?
Maybe they're having people who forget about their subscription.
That maybe, and don't show up.
Like that happened to me, and I got pinged an extra month, and I like fought him over it.
Yeah. I'm kind of like riding out this ClassPass wave until someone realizes that it's like too good of a deal. So I hope like no fitness people are listening because I don't want anyone telling them how good of a deal ClassPass is. Like, please don't cancel it.
That's awesome. Well, Amanda, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course. Do you want me to? Can I ask my like one question? I didn't even think of a question, but I want to have a question.
Sure.
So, what inspired you guys to start your podcast, especially being brothers? And I know you guys live in separate places because Justin's always going to talk about visiting you in Vermont. And that's where you are, right? In Vermont? Yeah.
Correct.
And so how'd you guys come up with the idea and just what's the inspiration behind it?
Well, originally, I had another podcast with my 2 friends because I lived in Oregon before I moved to Vermont. So I had 2 friends in Oregon that I just texted them. I was like, hey, we should start a podcast, you know? And my idea for that podcast was just to kind of talk to them just because I didn't talk to them that much. And I was like, oh, like it'd be great.
And let's just
we
record
just got
it.
on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we just talked some shit. So we did an episode. It was an epic fail where it was like not organized at all. We had no idea about distribution, how we were going to do that. I think we recorded on Riverside, but we had no idea like what Substack was.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like the most organized of the group, and I was like, I don't want all of
That's
that
a heavy burden
responsibility
to carry.
fall. Yeah, I was looking into the future.
Justin's
I was like, this
sly
is going
laugh over there is my
nowhere.
favorite. He's like, yeah, Dom was the most organized one of the group. Huh.
Perfect.
Well, you should see how organized
You should see
Justin
his
is of
press.
this group.
Whoa. These show
Whoa,
notes
whoa,
were
whoa.
these show notes were top level.
That one didn't work, and then me and Justin kind of threw out that idea, and then I was like, oh, like we should just start a podcast, and we'll just kind of interview random people, you know, and just have them kind of talk their shit, and just we could talk about whatever, you know. We're still kind of developing like exactly like
me too.
what we're talking about with people.
Yeah.
And then Tyler or Dean, you know, he's one of my best friends from home, and he already had this baseball podcast, so he volunteered just for us to kind of piggyback on there, where he just like does all the distribution and the social media and stuff like that. Yeah.
And tell me about this
really nice,
awesome logo. I love this. How did you guys come up with
AI,
that?
baby.
AI made that logo. Shut up. I'm glad I'm in this industry because it is going somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, Tyler, with the help of ChatGPT bot, made the logo.
That's dope. I love it. It's like I love the like metaphor that it's insinuating. You know, you guys go on separate paths, but then you come back together and you like walk in the trees or some shit. It's like love it.
So I have a friend on my soccer team who is a big fan of the podcast, and I don't really know him that well, to be honest. But he volunteered. He just came out of nowhere and just throws out all of these like artwork clips. Justin, did I ever show you any of these?
Yeah, you have. Who is this though?
He's just this guy Chris on my soccer team.
Huh.
Shout out to Chris on the soccer team.
Yeah, shout out to Chris. He was just like, hey man, I was just fucking around with online for a little bit, and I came up with these cool logos for life lanes, and they looked really nice. And I was like, oh, it'd be great if we can kind of like use these in the intro, and it'd be like two people, and they'd be like walking, you know, and then we would have like the intro music there.
That's
that was
cute.
like the vision.
We're
love
still
it. Working on the intro music. We had a song.
Copyright issues.
Yeah.
Well, we had a song that me and Tyler picked out that was really cool, and
laugh lanes.
No, it wasn't that.
That's what we were just singing.
That's great.
No, we went on like a website that it's just like all like these samples that you could choose from. So we thought it was fair game, but it wasn't fair game. And then I saw this random guy on Instagram, this like health guy, and he had that song, and I was like, what the fuck?
Maybe he paid licensing fees for it. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know if he's gonna get in trouble yet. Tyler, you remember that when I sent you that?
The other guy might get in trouble.
Yeah, he should get in trouble. We should report him.
Yeah, honestly, you should, so you can get the song.
It's like the Corvette guy.
Yeah,
we should do. I mean, we keep every time you guys say you want to do it, you like forget. But we should do intro music eventually.
Yeah, we need to record.
How does that how does that happen?
You just have to get some. Like I had someone do. I just paid someone for my intro and my intro music.
To make it?
Yeah, I just didn't want to mess with like, because a lot of those websites, Dom, like it's they purposely say it's like, bro, it's free and blah blah blah, and they hit you for copyright.
What about like I have friends who do like fucking DJ stuff.
Yeah, so I would just have them.
Dude, my boy Hi, my old college roommate.
Oh, Hi's the man.
Fucks around with the DJ. All right, I'll get Hi to create something for us.
Yeah,
I can't wait to hear the new theme song.
That would be because like right now, most of the time it's just my intro that I put on your guys' intro. I have like an intro and an outro that I just had some guy make. It's not anything crazy special.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, cheers to the new song. But yeah, that's awesome. I love that you guys are doing this together. It's kind of fun for me because I'm an only child, so it's like cute seeing you guys do your brotherly podcast.
Do you find it tough doing it by yourself?
Yeah, because the motivation is not always there, and it's more fun to banter with other people, which is why I like interviewing guests. It's been more fun for me to interview people than it has been to record solo episodes. You know?
Yeah, Amanda. It's funny you mention that because we are trying to do more we are an interview style podcast, and then last week Dom and I just researched a subject that was interesting and talked about it with each other.
How'd that go?
It was a little bit, honestly, it was great. Like we had a great time doing it. I think we learned something. Now, Dom, you know what happens? I went to a party Friday night. I'm like, have you heard about President Bukele? Because let me tell you, like, now it's like a super interesting thing.
I need to listen to it.
Great.
I was like, oh, I gotta check that out.
I really want to talk about Botswana though.
All right, we'll get there.
I think eventually you guys can like do those types of episodes with just a third guest who's like kind of like, or a third person who's kind of like acting like a host in a way.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. They probably need to be well versed in a topic because I like picking these random shit, you know, that like
then
you
we
probably
did a lot
have
of
not heard of
research.
it. Yeah, and then you just watch like a 20-minute
you would
YouTube video.
prep them like Amanda. You'd have someone who's been on before.
Mm-hmm. And then they kind of like interview you or like let you kind of run with it, and they just structure it.
Kind of.
Yeah, we haven't had any repeat guests on yet, so that'll be fun.
Amanda's on the docket.
Yeah, definitely on the docket.
Sweet. This has been super fun. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, let's connect about when I can come on yours, but also just to like see you in person would be lovely.
Let's do it.
We should do an in-person one sometime over the summer.
Yeah, let's do it for sure.
You can come to the puzzle dungeon.
I'm going to the puzzle dungeon. Don't worry about me. I will come back alive. Questionable.
You're going to be on the murder podcast.
Yes, I'm going to be the subject of a new murder podcast from the puzzle room.
Yeah, the puzzle room doesn't. I was thinking that too. I was like, that doesn't sound better.
No, it does not. It does not.
It sounds like it's a process to get out.
That sounds like Joe from You. Yeah, you know, you're stuck in the basement.
Yeah, exactly. You'll see what we mean when we say the puzzle dungeon, though.
Or you can watch this on YouTube with Lindsay. Lindsay was live in the puzzle dungeon.
All right,
that was a fun episode.
I will check it out, and I will for sure come over the summer.
Cool.
Who knows what other puzzles are going to be part of the dungeon
I think
he's adding? We haven't even hung up the huge one.
There's a lot. Yeah, we're gonna run out of wall.
We should put it on the ceiling.
Oh my god, this is not the Sistine Chapel. We don't need your puzzle on the ceiling.
Oh, they're like, what kind of material is that, Justin? With the basement ceiling?
They're drop ceiling, so they're just like.
Is that what boys think artwork is? It's like we did this puzzle, so we should put it on the wall.
What's wrong with that? It's nice. I like it.
Not to throw too much shade at your artwork, but.
That's my world map of travel.
I mean, listen, I can't really talk. I get my artwork from like Marshall, so whatever.
Yeah, Judging McJudge.
Yeah.
Dom ruined it.
Isn't that artwork?
Yes, sure, yes, it is.
That's pretty nice.
What are you pointing to? I can't even see it.
Maybe it's real, but it looks fake.
No. It's like my arms are too short.
Never mind. Short Kings.
Short Kings.
All right.
Love it.
Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah.